Good morning. Welcome to the Carroll Show. Thanks for joining us. I think we have some good information coming today we want to share with you. I have Mr. Ray Emory, and those of you that subscribe to the Honolulu Advertiser or saw KGMB over Friday night, we have seen him there. And we're going to be talking about many things, unknown soldiers and Mr. Emory's efforts, and I should say grand efforts and accomplishments in aiding and identifying the unknown soldiers. But before that, I'm excited, as you know, to this morning's paper, the Advertiser. The headlines is basically the Forgotten Cemetery, and while it's named that, there's a gentleman named Ray Emory who's never forgot it. In fact, has been just unbelievably working steadfast on this to just simply keep it in, do what's right. There are so many people that were disinterred there, taken up and taken to punch bowl and what have you. And along the way, some were listed as unknown and what have you. And you're going to be fascinated or impressed with Mr. Emory as well as I'll go out on a limb and say that. I believe he will be. This is a man who has actually done things that make me feel like I'm a little June bug compared to his efforts, and sorting through documents and coming up with information that really, imagine your loved one being interned in a place with no name, no location, no nothing, and someone comes along, take it upon themselves to actually find that information. And we're going to share those stories, and we're going to talk about Pearl Harbor, but we're going to talk about the West Loch disaster that occurred May 21st, 1944, and some very interesting topics. So without delaying any further, Ray, thank you, and good morning. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all.
Well, I was a kid from joined the Navy in 1940 from Peoria, Illinois, and I ended up aboard the Savannah at first in 1940, and then in 41 I ended up on the USS Honolulu, and excuse me, and happened to be aboard the Honolulu on December 7th in Pearl Harbor.
Right. I wanted to, as a little teaser, I didn't want to tell them just up front to have a survivor of Pearl Harbor who was right there. I just thought I'd let you tell them. But folks, we're fortunate to even have, in 93 years old and look better than me. In fact, we're driving along the way here and everybody's going, "Hi, Ray," and look at me as if I was just a chauffeur. So he's a good-looking guy at 93, I'm telling you folks, and just a bundle of information, unbelievable. And you should see his files he shared with us. And so I offer that to say to you that he's not all talk and hot water or piss and vinegar. This man has walked the walk, talked the talk, and he can show you the documents. So someone that I want to grow up and be like. But anyway, tell us about this West Loch incident. It was something that some say we held in secrecy, and I understand there was a benefit to being quiet a bit. But we just celebrated the 70th anniversary of the West Loch disaster, involving the loss of at least 132 African Americans, and this is something has not been widely known or publicly disseminated. But thanks to Ray, who has gone and looked at all the records that were available pretty much, and then some, and have come up and able to present with us and the public the number of African Americans that served here, and they were stationed at Schofield. So I'll let you tell the story.
Well, it was an incident that happened in 1944, May. They were getting ready to invade Saipan, and prior to leaving, for some reason or other, they were changing the ammunition on some LSTs, which was known over in the West Loch. The report that I've been able to kind of put together in the pieces is that on one of the LSTs they had a Army had a truck backed up onto the ramp, and they were taking the ammunition off the LST and putting it into this truck. And they had knocked off for lunch, and shortly after lunch, for some reason, somebody or something, mishandling of ammunition, it blew and it did a lot of damage. Like you say, there was 132 casualties. Really, it was not kept a secret. A lot of people, the whole city of Honolulu knew it because there was an article in the paper about what happened. The whole Pacific Fleet was in Pearl Harbor at that time, over 500 vessels, which the harbor had. So it was not really a secret. It may have not been published a lot, but actually, until after World War II, people started getting into it. Well, thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all.
Well, I was a kid from joining the Navy in 1940 from Peoria, Illinois, and I ended up aboard the Savannah at first in 1940. And then in 41, I ended up on the USS Honolulu, and excuse me, and happened to be aboard the Honolulu on December 7th in Pearl Harbor.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to, as a little teaser, I didn't want to tell them just up front to have a survivor of Pearl Harbor who was right there. I just thought I'd let you tell them. But folks, we're fortunate to even have, in 93 years old and look better than me. In fact, we're driving along the way here and everybody's going, "Hi, Ray," and look at me as if I was just a chauffeur. So he's a good-looking guy at 93, I'm telling you folks, and just a bundle of information, unbelievable. And you should see his files. He shared with us. And so I offer that to say to you that he's not all talk and hot water or piss and vinegar. This man has walked the walk, talked the talk, and he can show you the documents. So someone that I want to grow up and be like. But anyway, tell us about this West Loch incident. It was something that some say we held in secrecy, and I understand there was a benefit to being quiet a bit. But we just celebrated the 70th anniversary of the West Loch disaster, involving the loss of at least 132 African Americans. And this is something has not been widely known or publicly disseminated. But thanks to Ray, who has gone and looked at all the records that were available pretty much, and then some, and have come up and able to present with us and the public the number of African Americans that served here, and they were stationed at Schofield. So I'll let you tell the story, if you will.
Well, it was an incident that happened in 1944, May. They were getting ready to invade Saipan. And prior to leaving, for some reason or other, they were changing the ammunition on some LSTs, which was known over in the West Loch. The report that I've been able to kind of put together in the pieces is that on one of the LSTs, Army had a truck backed up onto the ramp, and they were taking the ammunition off the LST and putting it into this truck. And they had knocked off for lunch, and shortly after lunch, for some reason, somebody or something, mishandling of ammunition, it blew and it did a lot of damage. Like you say, there was 132 casualties. Really, it was not kept a secret. A lot of people, the whole city of Honolulu knew it because there was an article in the paper about what happened. The whole Pacific Fleet was in Pearl Harbor at that time, over 500 vessels, which the harbor had. So it was not really a secret. It may have not been published a lot, but actually, until after World War II, people started getting into it. As a matter of fact, I don't know whether I mentioned to you the other day, I think it was the 1980s, the LST that is still on the beach out there, they found the body in it. And nobody knows where this body came from, but I ran across his report out of Old Silhai that the body was given over to the government to identify it. And I don't think they ever did identify the person.
Probably either homeless or someone accidental death, unattended death, recent.
Could have been.
But This incident involved the 29th Central Chemical Decontamination Unit assigned at Schofield Barracks, and as you say, they were deployed or assigned temporarily at West Loch.
Of handling ammunition, they were involved with the ammunition
Right.
transfer.
And the Navy, thanks to you and the African American Diversity Culture Center, the Navy has joined forces in actually aiding that organization, and I think yourself in getting documents and being able to go there. And I went out on one of the tours this last Wednesday to witness that, and we've posted a number of pictures at Facebook at carrollcox.com, the Carroll Cox Show. So, but back to this, you put together a summary of Pearl Harbor, West Loch, and you say in here, it's fascinating. The Army had 60 dead, recovered an ID 14, missing is 46. The Marine Corps had 38 dead, recovered 16, 22 missing. The Navy had 33 dead, 19 recovered an ID, 14 missing. Coast Guard, and I spoke with a friend yesterday who was in the Coast Guard. He never knew anything about this, that a Coast Guard person died. And one document referred to Coast Guard men that passed, but you have documented at least one, for a total of 132. Unbelievably, 50 of them are identified. So when we say recovered an ID, what does that mean?
The bodies were actually recovered and identified. Now, some of these were identified right that day. Others were identified after the war when they dug up like Halava Cemetery or up Schofield Barracks. People were identified at that time.
And so if they were recovered and some are missing, what would be the explanation, a possible explanation that some are missing and will never be recovered?
Well, I think it's an explosion there. The people that were military people were right there at that impact. They're almost vaporized. They're long gone. And just like on the Arizona, when the forward part of that ship blew, most of those people were just vaporized.
And so this unit, they had, as a result of these numbers, and they were originally interned, as you just mentioned, in Halava Cemetery.
And some up at Schofield. I think there was about 10 or 12 of them at Schofield Barracks.
And what was in Schofield disinterred and removed?
Yes,
taken to
they were also, what, 1947 or 48 dug up. And
yeah, I personally, I want to assign a title of forensics expert to Ray, because it takes forensics to look at these documents and conclude, to go out and find them. First of all, I wouldn't even know where to begin in some of these documents, honestly with you. And I do a lot of research, so my hat's off to you.
Carroll, if you notice, there was a burial number of the lava,
Right.
and an X number. Okay, so if you go to Punch Bowl and you go to the office up there and you go to like one of these Punch Bowl or West Loch actually, it's got an X number on it,
Right.
the body number. So you're able to look at that document, and that document will tell you where it's buried in the cemetery. It's just like climbing a set of stairways or a ladder. You just go from one to the other, and it leads you right to the spot where it is. The records are clear.
Right. And I know that a number of these they're listed. They're at Punch Bowl, for example,
Yeah.
still saying unknown.
Yes.
And there are multiple individuals in each, or not each, but in several of the graves.
Yeah, there's two. I think if you might have the report there, there's something like 39 grave sites and 40 some bodies.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, why then, and this brings me to, and it may not go well, or set well with some hearing this, why do we have that when at our disposals, clearly you're able to track and do the records and match the X number opposed to the Halava, and this, why are there still so many that can be identified, why have they not been identified?
You have to ask the Secretary of Defense that question, Carroll. I brought with me a letter that was written by something like 13 senators to the Secretary of Defense requesting that the Oklahoma casualty be buried, dug up some of them. Well, instead of taking responsibility and say, go dig them up, he's referred it down to somebody else to study. So anyway, they will be studying that, I guess, for, I don't know how long.
Yeah. Now,
Pardon me, let me go backtrack 1 second. Getting involved in this to begin with, the very first casualty that I tried to get identified, I went to Old Silhigh before it came JPAC, and I asked them what it took to get the wheels a turning to get somebody going. So they told me what it took. So I rushed home and put all that together and plus more. Went back out to Silhigh. Anyway, and I had a certain gentleman out there, and I said, okay, is this what it takes? He said, yeah. You know how long it took to dig him up? 5 years.
wow.
And the only reason they dug him up to check is because they were digging up the Okinawa casualties, and the way they processed the bodies, chemically they were having a problem. So they said, well, we better dig up a World War II, see if we would have the same problem. And that was the only reason they dug them up to start.
So
A
compare.
kid named Emory, Thomas Emory, off the USS Curtis.
Share that story just with the listeners, how you became aware of Hembry, and then in turn, finally, and before I go any further, what through his documents and reading many of his documents, the arranged documents that he has, there's an unsung hero here that she's noted for getting the ladies' sports and the universities and the Patsy Mink Park. But in reading the documents that you have, Patsy Mink will contribute quite a bit to this and gave you great support, it appears. Is that correct?
She was great support. If it hadn't been for her, it'd be over 300 grave markers up at Punchbowl with just kind of unknown marked on it.
And we don't know that, but that was the first glaring example of how some people are not credited with. She didn't look for credit, but I had no knowledge that she was involved to such a degree. So there was something you described that she attached a rider to a certain bill because can you share that a little bit?
Well, she wrote a letter to a colonel in the Army who had previously written me a letter to forget it, that we weren't going to do anything. And he didn't answer the letter. So she wrote him another letter, just indicating to him that she had written a letter to him and didn't respond. Well, I didn't respond to that letter. So it ends up she bypassed him and went to the House Appropriate on Finance and ended up getting a rider on the appropriations bill to force the Army and the Department of Veterans Affairs to get the correct information onto the grave markers.
Wow. And she is instrumental in a lot of this stuff, and we don't know that as a congresswoman, but she was definitely on the money, on the spot. And I read some of the letters. She had exchanges with these people. If they were dragging their feet, she would really write them back and just tell them in a very short and succinct way, get your act together.
Well, that was one thing about Patsy. If you got the truth to her, what you were trying to accomplish, she was like a tiger to help.
Yeah. And so as a result, this, we some people say, well, the full 42nd gets all the attention. But the reality is, it was through your efforts and through Ms. Mink's support of you in writing, bolstered this whole effort and gave it a shot in the arm that these African Americans, that the African American community will benefit from this, not secret, but this delay in giving acknowledgement.
Yeah, well, like some of the Westlock casualties that were buried up Punchbowl, all it says was too unknown, whatever the case. No date on the grave marker, or not even where they got killed. And Punchbowl is almost like Arlington. There's a lot of information up there. Like I showed you the other day, like the guy was something like the 13th Marine Division.
Right.
Says on the grave marker. Well, there was only 6 And there's all kinds of information that could be on grave markers at Punchbowl that isn't there.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say that's always playing in your head that you would like to say to the administrators of the Punch Bowl and other places? What could they do just in a simple act to get this thing going better and faster? And more
Well,
efficient?
I think if it was them laying there, they would at least like to have on their grave marker the correct date. If they were aboard a ship, the name of the ship they were on, and the battle they fought,
Mhm.
and the date and something like that. Going back originally, I found out that prior to World War II and up into the early part of World War II, on an application for a grave marker, there was a block up there that said vessel. Shortly into World War II, the American Braves Registration Service came along, took vessel out.
At Punch Bowl, I noticed you have books of photographs and documents. So it's easy to just go through, you photograph them. The same thing can be done by the management of the cemetery or the memorial and start to identify these. Have they ever invited you to be formally part of that activity, or do they shun you?
I went to Punch Bowl years ago, and I said, I'd like to get some volunteers to come up and computerize this cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I'd tell them where they got killed, what ship they were on, and who the next of kin was. Well, somebody told me that you can't tell the public that, who the next of kin was. I says, Horse, you know what? I says, give me 15 minutes to get home. And any Navy, Coast Guard, or Marine Corps casualty that you got buried up here in World War II, I'll tell you who the next of kin is. It was all published in 1945. So what's secret about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in that same vein, there the naysayers said, well, you, Ray, went out and took it upon yourself to say that you are able to identify the African Americans of in those days, the Negro soldiers that were killed in
That list you got in your hand?
this list here. And some will say you just made it up, but what is this list, if you would? It shows the race and ethnicity or whatever, the title and all.
Well, this is from the Court of Inquiry report, Army Unit, the 29th Chemical Decontamination Company, Negro, was on board unloading mortar rounds at the time of the explosion. No roster of this unit's casualties was included in the Navy report. In an attempt to obtain the names of the dead and missing, the 29th Chemical Decontamination Company morning reports were requested from the National Personnel Records Center, St. Louis. The following list was extracted.
You actually have the list, and this is what you drew from their own records.
That's right.
And they could have done this as well, but they don't. They, being whomever, especially Punch Bowl, don't seem to be motivated. And how about JPAC? Should they have a role? And if they have a role, are they doing what they could do best, or what would you?
First, you got to get the public interested. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm. And then how about for example, in an attempt to obtain the names of the dead and missing, the 29th Chemical Decontamination Company's morning reports were requested from the National Personnel Records Center, St. Louis. The following list was extracted. This is what you obtained.
Yes.
Did you share this with the people that manage the Punch Bowl? Or?
No, because they're not basically how would they apply? They wouldn't know what to do with that list.
Even though they have records and have same access that you have.
Well, you'd have to go back to original Bury and start through the whole process.
So,
they more or less got the center picture.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the beginning picture and basically the end picture. And you got to put all these pictures
put
together.
all the puzzles together.
Yeah, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. The records are there, but some are here, some are there, some are there.
Mm-hmm. And this list, this total list is showing 35. And simply, no casualty listing for the U.S. Marine Corps, either by name or unit, have been located. Mr. Crawford, USMC historian, has been contacted and a request made for available. So not everyone has been lethargic in their behavior in helping you. Some have been actually involved in helping you in various offices, correct?
Yes.
But I mean, this is Punchbowl, when they said, can we use your facility to commemorate this, then that's when the ball got, for me, once I heard it, I thought, wow, here's an opportunity. And then I heard this gentleman, he calls himself Ray Emory, standing there and spouting the truth, and I thought, I gotta go up and approach this man and ask him to come on the show and share the truth.
That's why I'm here today, to help you get the word out about the West Loch.
My God, I'm going to try to get an excerpt from what your presentation was there. Folks, if you've ever seen anybody speak with fire in their belly, this gentleman, he is committed to the soldiers. We're talking all the side issues, but his focus is on helping identify the soldiers that have served and gave their life for this country, and all they are identified as, you see the number 2, unknown, the date, West Loch disaster, if that. I think we owe them more than that, especially, not just on Memorial Day, but we owe them, as you described, laid it out. We should give them better. So, anyway, that with this West Loch, let's describe that there's the LSTs, and I posted up the speech that was given by Commander Tim Wilkie, commanding officer, AFLO training group, MidPAC, and I was pretty moved with that speech. And there was another gentleman, Doug Wachter, whose father served on one of the LSTs. And there was also a living survivor, a pharmacist, Mr. Jack Sampson, who resides in Needham, Oregon now, and he was here. So have you had any contact with any of the other survivors, or any other survivors of the West Loch?
Not that I recall. I've met them in past years when they had their tours out to the West Loch, but I don't recall their names.
Mm-hmm. So the thing, it talked about, the speech, it talked about the LST of roll T8 consisted of the LSTs 205, 225, 274, 43, 179, 353, and that's the one the African Americans were assigned to loading, LST 353, and then 39 with pharmacist Mate Sampson's LST 2.